Hi everyone! So I'm going to be demonstrating today how to get started on these nesting boxes. So the very first thing that you are going to do is you are going to make a paper mock-up of your box. So this is a paper mock-up of a 3 by 3 inch box. Okay. The reason that we're going to do these paper models first is because, one, I want you to see the relative sizes. So, for example, this is a big box that would be for, if I decided to do the Harry Potter theme, this is the size of those boxes for the big one. My little one, much smaller. I can see the relative size of them. I can see how much extra room I'm going to have, if any. And I know the scale of what I'm about to make. The other reason is because when I make this box, when I make this assembled box, and I know all the sizes are good, I know all the pieces fit together, I have all the pieces I need, all I have to do is cut this box back apart. I would have those pieces, I would be able to take this piece, put it on my clay, trace it, and I'd have the right size. So I'm going to do the math for this part of it, and then I don't have to do the math again. I just have to trace it. Okay? So things that you want to consider for your sizes for this. So remember, we have a big box and we have a small box that fits inside that big box. The largest dimension that we want for our big box is 8 inches, so nothing in any direction bigger than 8 inches. The smallest dimension is going to be 4 for our big box, so every dimension is between 4 and 8 inches. Okay? The reason we want to stop at 4 is because, remember, these boxes have a thickness. I'm grabbing one real quick. The walls on these boxes have a thickness to them, right? So this is one example box here. This has a thickness. If this is 4 inches across this way, then I have to consider the thickness and how much is going to be left inside for my smaller boxes. All of your boxes have walls that are 1/4 inch thick. So that means if it's 4 minus 1/4 minus 1/4, the interior is going to be 3.5. I want to be able to get my fingers down in there to get the smaller box out, so I'm going to take a little bit off from that. So I would have a very, very small box here if I made a 4 by 4 by 4 box for my large one. Okay? So, all dimensions between 4 and 8 inches for our big box. For the small box, you want to consider what that interior space is going to be because we have to fit a sculpture in there, right? But we also want to make sure that, again, we can get our fingers in there to get them out. So for the small box, your dimensions need to be at least 1.5 inches, if not more, less than your large box, okay? So I have some little example images here, and you're welcome to pause the video to look at these more. But for example, if I wanted a cube for my big box, I could do a 6 by 6 by 6 cube. My small box, I could do 4 by 4 by 4, and that would be fine. I could even do 4.5 by 4.5 by 4.5. That would also be fine. Okay, so this small box would fit inside this box with enough room to account for the thickness of the walls and to be able to get our fingers in there and get it out. Now, keep in mind for our small boxes, that doesn't account for a handle. If you're going to have a big, tall handle on there, make sure you leave enough space on the inside for that. If you wanted to do some rectangular boxes, here are some sample sizes that you can do. I've also included how much interior space is here. Okay? If you want to do a hexagonal box, there's some measurements here for you as well. These measurements would be able to fit inside this box, okay? And they'd have about that much space left over on the very, very inside to keep a sculpture in, okay? So, I'm going to set this aside for a second. Again, if you need these dimensions, go ahead and pause the video so that you can look at them more closely. So, I have my paper template of a box. This is just a 3x3 box. I use sticky notes just so that I could quickly get it done. You guys can just measure out whatever size you want your boxes to be to make your little paper models, okay? You will turn these paper models in for a grade. So take a picture of them, turn them into Echo for some points. It's part of the process, okay? So I've got my box here. I can break down my box. So I have one side of my box and roll out some clay and then trace out those pieces, okay? This clay is still pretty soft. We're going to let the clay get leather hard, okay? Letting it get leather hard, and then we're going to start assembling them. Now, if you are at school, we have a tool that's kind of like this guy, okay? This is called a miter or an angle cutter, okay? And essentially what this does is this cuts a 45-degree angle for you into the clay. Now, if you want to do a hexagonal box or a triangular box, this other side is going to be of use to you. If you can see those two sides. This side over here has a 90-degree corner, a 45, and a 45. This side has a 90, a 60-degree angle, and a 30-degree angle. Okay, so this side really is only necessary if you're doing a triangle-shaped box or a hexagon-shaped box. You will also use this one. This side, if you're doing a cube, if you're making a rectangular prism, whatever it is, you're using this side, the 45-degree triangle. Okay. The way this works is it's going to cut an angle into your clay. When we cut out a 45-degree angle, we are left with a 45-degree angle. When I take two 45-degree angled pieces of clay and put them together, I'm going to make a 90-degree angle. Okay? So, I'm going to let my clay get leather hard. We want it to have just a little bit of flex, not too much, just a little bit of flex, but we do not want these bone dry. We still want to be able to slice through it with our wire tool here. Okay? If you are not at school, you don't have one of these, and that's okay. I'll show you the trick. Okay? What we need to do is cut a 45-degree angle onto this thing. Okay? I know if I'm using those wooden guides to roll out your clay, you know that your clay is about 1/4 of an inch thick. Okay? So you can see there, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go onto each piece and I'm going to measure up about 1/4 of an inch. I happen to have a ruler that makes it pretty easy. If you've got a regular ruler, that's okay. Just measure about 1/4 of an inch. Okay? I can place my ruler 1/4 of an inch from that edge. Okay? I'm going to use some kind of cutting tool. You can use a butter knife if you're at home. Just wash it after. You can use a fettling knife if you're here at school, whatever it is that you have. I'm going to use this little cleaning tool here. And I'm going to hold my blade at a 45-degree angle. Okay? So I'm holding it at a 45. I'm actually going to turn this around because I'm right-handed. So I'm holding my blade at a 49-degree angle. This ruler is placed 1/4 of an inch from the edge of my clay. And I'm just going to cut this at an angle. The tip of my blade here is going to touch, you can see that, the corner of my clay. So I'm going to hold my blade just like that all the way through, pressing against this ruler the whole way. Okay? So I'm holding this like that at an angle. I'm going to hold my ruler down and I'm slicing through my clay. Oops, tore it just a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to measure 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Hold my ruler 1/4 of an inch from the edge. At a 45, I know the tip is lining right up with the edge of that clay. cutting my 45. Okay? I would do this all the way around all 4 sides of all 6 pieces of my box here. Remember, if you're doing a rectangular prism, if you're doing a rectangle box instead of a cube box, all of your pieces are not the same. If you're doing a cube, they're all the same. That's fine. But if you're doing a rectangle, they are not all the same. Okay? So I would miter the edges. That's what this is called, mitering my pieces, cutting them at an angle so that they join together to make the angle of my box, the corner of my box. I would do this on all 4 sides, okay? If you're at school, again, you have one of these tools. The way that you use this is you're just going to make sure this bottom edge is flat against the table. I'm going to make sure this corner is right up against my clay. Scoop this all up a little bit. I'm going to make sure my clay is flat. I like to keep my thumb here on the base so that I don't rip my corner off. Okay, right up against there. And I'm just going to pull through the edge of my clay, and it's cutting that angle perfectly for me every time. So yes, there is a benefit to being at school and having the tools, but it is totally not impossible to do this at home without this tool. Okay? So I've got my 2 pieces here. I would do it to all the pieces. I'm just going to show you on these 2 just for the sake of time here. But you can see I've got the 45-degree angles cut into these 2 pieces of clay. And because of that, these are going to fit together perfectly to make the corner of my box. Okay? I'm going to score, scratch it up really well. I will add slip. I will attach them. And then I'm also going to go into the corners here on the inside and add a little bit of clay to them. Slip. Attach. Okay. And then on that inside corner, I'm going to add a little bit of soft clay and smooth it out. I'm always supporting on the outside so it doesn't go wonky on me. And I'd continue. I would get my next piece, I'd miter the corners, put it in there, continue. Get my next piece, miter all of the edges, continue. You would also want to go in and smooth out the outside and make sure that the corner on the outside, you can see that, is nice and neat. But this is the way that we have to make these boxes so that it's the right size every time, okay? Now, I would only go in and cut all of these pieces out if I have the time to finish assembling the box at once. Okay, so make sure you take the time to, or set the time aside to go ahead and assemble this if you've got them cut. You do want them to be leather hard, so you can get the heat gun out if you need to, the hair dryer if you're at home, you can just let them sit out for a little bit, but don't forget them. We don't want them too flexible. They still need to have a little bit of bend, right? But I should be able to pick these up without them just flopping over, okay? That way they can hold their shape when we start assembling them, and you can start to see this box coming together. You should assemble these boxes completely assembled, 100%, all 6 sides, or if you're doing a hexagon shaped or a different shape, all of your sides completely assembled, completely sealed, okay? Then we will talk in the next video, or I will show you in the next video, that we will cut into that assembled box to create the lid, okay? And as I mentioned last week, there's more than one way to do that. But they all start the same way. They all start with completely assembled boxes. So seal it off. You obviously won't be able to put the clay in the seam of that very, very last piece that you add on until it's cut open later, but assemble it completely. In the next video, next class, I will show you guys how to cut the different lids out, okay? Hopefully you don't have any questions. If you do, email me. We can set up a video conference if you would like, however you would like to do that. But paper templates first, take a picture of them, upload them to Echo so I can give you points, and then cut apart that paper template, trace, and start assembling. Hope you are all well and happy and excited to be working at home with some clay. I will see you guys before you know it. Have a great day.